Oi oi, hello and welcome to another trends type video. We are on the cusp of York's Ebor meeting coming up, 4-day meeting, and there is some seriously good action to get involved in there. Now, for good word, I gave you the 5 cheat sheet days. I gave a little visual up on the screen to tell you about the trends for each particular race and how you could whittle those races down. And then I gave you a link to the article in the description so you could go and try and figure it out yourself as well, make your own shortlist. Good to see the feedback from that was pretty decent. I'll put a couple of comments that came up from the YouTube channel, including one particular viewer who was able to make a reasonable profit, I suppose, from those cheat sheets alone. Now, as I said in the video before, these can be a little bit of a sort of addition to your form providing, but you can use them as your sole selection pieces too, if you were that way inclined. So whether it comes to place pots or just having an interest in certain races, I definitely believe that these will help. However, this video, I'm not just going to run through each of the 4 days. You can click the links below and you can get the little savable file. You can have an image that can go on your phone so you can carry those around with you. It does have a list of all the stats as well in there, not just the quote lines in there. But there are 3 copies that I've done for the Juddmonte, for the Nunthorpe and for the Ebor. So in this particular video, I'm going to run you through those 3 big races again. I'll pull up the cheat sheet on there, which gives the little one-liners, but I'll put a link to the description or link in the description for these articles too. So these articles have a little bit more detail within them. Not only are they done for the last 10 years, which is what the cheat sheets are done for the last, for each of those 4 days of the meeting, they're actually done since the turn of the century as well. And then there's a bit of a comparison to see how things have been since the start of the century to how they've been in the last 10 years. And maybe it's a case that some of the trends are for changing, but I pull out the key trends, which I'll put up on the visual here. So without further ado, let's crack on with those. Actually, before we do that, there's still a good percentage of you that aren't subscribed to GG's channel. So make sure you are subscribed by clicking the subscribe button below. Make sure you like the video. And you saw me really fancily crop out a couple of comments in there as well. Drop a comment on this video about what your best bet is for the York Festival, or some ideas of content that you may be interested in seeing us pull forward going forward. I really do believe these cheat sheets are an absolute blinder for festivals such as this. Of course, not every single week we do have these big festivals. So if there's anything else you fancy me doing or you fancy me getting GG to talk about potentially doing, then let us know in the comments below. Anyway, let's crack on. In the order I've got them is Juddmonte, Nunthorpe, Ebor. That may annoy people if it's not in the right order for them, but it's the way we're going. So this is a fantastic race. We know it's a real high class and high caliber race within there. Looks like this is going to be a real decent renewal. Everyone's lining up to take on City of Troy, so we'll see how this one goes. But on the trends, which are now pulled up on the screen, the typical trends you want to look for, there'll be a horse that's aged 3 to 5. They're most likely going to be priced 3 to 1 or shorter. So, I mean, does this video need to go much longer? Has an official rating of 120 or more. Will have run in a Group 1 last time out and will have at least placed. That race should have been over 10 furlongs or 12 furlongs. They should have 3 or more runs this season and 2 or more wins too. They will have already won at least one Group 1, but probably 2 or more. So look, class does come to the fore in this, and as I say, we looked at this over the longer period, which was the start of the century, and in the last 10 years, and those type of things seem to carry on as we move forward, right? The bulk of the winners are aged 3 to 5, but I don't think that's particularly going to help us find the winner. It is on there as the short price thing in there. Favourites do have a reasonable record on here, right? So they've won about 50% of them since the turn of the century and in the last 10 years. And then the 3 to 1 or shorter record is 17 from 24 or 7 from 10. So that's 71% or 70%. So look, they're going to be most likely towards the head of the market. However, this year's renewal, they're all trying to take shots to line up against City of Troy and getting beat. So I don't know, maybe that one could even be bucked. So look, it's one of these. This is something to complement your form study or your selection. But as I say, the Juddmonte could be fairly straightforward. So we'll move on to the Nunthorpe Stakes. This looks to be highly competitive this year. A real vintage group race this time round. Look, there's a lot of trends that could come up on here, so I'll pull that up on the screen so we can quickly whittle through those. But look, likely to be a single figure price. Preference to those drawn in the bottom half of the field. Should be rated 110 or higher, but really respect horses that are rated 115 plus. Should have at least placed last time out. Raced at 5 furlongs and preferably in a group race and probably in the last 6 weeks. Lots of them will tick that box. Should have at least raced at York, but preferably has 1 here, so some of the ones in this race may not tick that box. Likely to have had 10 or more runs at 5 furlongs and 5 or more wins at the Trip 2. They will have had at least 2 runs this season and they should have won at least once. but rarely is the winner of this race unbeaten. Maybe that's the case because it's 5 furlongs. We just don't know. Should have won a group race in their career is another trend to tick in here. That's not saying a Group 1, a Group 1, 2 or 3. So this is one where, you know, the race looks real competitive this time around. We're going to have Big Evs versus Asphora, and we're going to have Believin' in it, and there's going to be a few more horses that are going to line up too. So the weights do change a little bit from that Goodwood race, with this being a better class race, but I don't know whether this is much more competitive this time around, that some of the trends maybe don't work out so much. But like I say, the link to the article is in there for the Nunthorpe. You can go and look at that. I break it down into lots of different categories. Into age, I've done every percentage of age winners that have won the race. I've got prices in there. We've got stuff to do with the draw as well. Well, like I say, 70% since the turn of the century and in the last 10 years have been drawn in the bottom half of the field. So over 5 furlongs at York, it does seem to be a positive in there. Last time out figures as well, there seems to be a reasonable prevalence in places within there. So like horses will have placed, that seems to be getting more prominent now. And running within the last 6 weeks as well. There's always been prominent, sort of about 78, so 79, 80%, but now up to 90%. But obviously, the 10-year sample is a little bit smaller. The running at York is quite big too, because the last 10 winners have all run at York. 7 of the last 10 had actually won at York as well, so that's 70%. But winners who had run at York, there was 17 and 24 from the century. So it's not the be-all and end-all, but more recently it has looked like a real big stat. So you can click the article, you can go and have a look through, and you see how you whittle down your best figures in there. But it's a race that does look really competitive this year, and a handy one to look at. Now, onto the Ebor. Big, juicy handicap. Surely the trends will help us find the winner here. So let's whip them up here. We've got trend 1, most likely to be aged 4 to 6 with between 2 and 5 career flat wins. The reason I emphasise flat there is because some of these horses can be jumpers too, so you don't want to be counting their jump wins in those figures. Look to those in the top half of the draw, and bonus points for being drawn in stall 18 or higher. There's been a couple of winners that have been like real low down, but typically you want to be real wide in this. It's a real big competitive race. I know it goes on for ages, but if you get fenced in, you get fenced in. Should have an official rating of 100 plus. That's not really going to whittle it down, but likely to be rated 105 plus, so that may whittle it down a little bit more. Last time out winners should definitely be respected. They should have run at 14 furlongs in their career and 14 furlongs or further last time out. Ideally, you want a horse who has less than 5 runs this season and only won once this season. So they're sort of the quick fire key trends I would suggest within here. But again, I whittle through and I run down everything from age, price, draw, course form, season form, bits and pieces like that. So you can click the link below to see all of those in there. Again, it's done from the century to the last 10. There are some more significant sort of recency bias, I guess, for these Ebor trends. Things like the age and stuff has a reasonably fair split, but it does look like it's moving a little bit away from what it has been from the century. The same with the price as well. We do seem to be seeing some more, I guess, 12 to 1 or shorter type horses that are more likely to win the race than they have been. You could argue one way or the other with that. You could say that's a new bit of formula we want to use, or you could say that maybe we're due some bigger price winners in there. The draw in the top and bottom half has increased in the fact that the top half has had 80% and then the bottom half has now had 30%. So before it had 22%, now got 30%. So it has increased a little bit with that bottom half in a shorter sample, but over the longer period, right, it has had a bigger significance. Official rating as well is something that's jumped up quite a bit, but maybe it's just the fact that this is attracting better class horses within here. But it's still something that's worth paying attention to. Looking back 22 years ago, it's a different type of race to it is now, which is where those rating bands will come out. The last time out part has changed quite a bit as well. There was maybe a few horses that were coming here off of a little bit of a break in the past, but now there seems to be more horses that potentially come in here off a little bit of a break. You've basically got 50% of the last 5 winners running in the last 6 weeks and 50% of them not running, but since the turn of the century, 75% of winners have run inside the last 6 weeks. So is that a trend that's changing, or has that just been circumstance for the last few winners? Look, I'll let you click the links below so you can look at each of those, the Ebor, the Nunthorpe, the Juddmonte, and each of the individual 4-day cheat sheets for York. You can make up your own minds in there. There will be a weekend watch this Thursday. We'll be covering the Saturday action. There will be columns all over the website for GG.CO.UK with Andrew's selections. I'm sure Matt will have a few in there too. But appreciate your guys' support. Make sure you've liked the video. Make sure you've subscribed. As I say, comment below if there's any type of content videos you're interested in seeing us potentially put out there for you. We'll make it happen, and I'll see you all again very soon. Again, thank you so much for the support. Links are in the description. Go and give them a click.